Welcome to the Brian Hooper podcast. I am Brian Hooper. Shocking, I know. I guess this is my second solo pod I've done without the great Peter Overzet. So bear with me as I stumble my way through this. Decided to do Q&A style because it's way easier than thinking of stuff yourself, guys. You farm the questions. All right. Let's look through these questions here. All right, I'll start with what looks to be a real question from our guy, Lou Dog. Everyone knows Lou. He asks, it's a bunch of questions, but kind of around a general concept. What kind of bankroll is needed to enter 150 lineups? How many buy-ins should you have available to you? Second part, is that as simple as 150x number of total slates? And then this is kind of separate for NFL. If you lose 8 straight, should you stop there? All right. So entering 150, I would need more information, like what's your win rate? How have you been doing over the X amount of years? What stakes have you been playing? I'm not have been playing. Yeah, I guess have been playing. But what stakes do you plan to enter the 150 in? Is the big key, because entering 150 into, a $50 or $100 big milli maker on NFL Sunday is a heck of a lot different than a 25-cent entry 150. So let's just stick with a dollar a lineup 150 max, just to keep the math simple. Kind of a bad slate is you'll get like 25% back. So, like, having that in mind, you're going to get back like 30, whatever, $33 or something. You're going to lose like 112. I think somewhere around like $3,000 for that seems like kind of a solid number to play those stakes. And then if I probably lost half of that, then I would drop down to the 50-cent level. And then again to the 25-cent level. This is if I'm playing like, pure bankroll protection. I'm like a college kid or something. I have no other way of getting any money. That's it. That would kind of be. I think that seems fair without having a whole bunch more information from you. And then actually looking at it closely. I would just kind of rule of thumb like that. That seems pretty fair. If you lose 8 straight NFL slates, should you just stop there? That's a good question. Most people are losing players, right? Unfortunately, it'd be nice if we could all win somehow. But so technically, you probably should stop before you start. But a lot of people gamble for entertainment purposes. So they're fine losing $50 in drafting a few teams, or $10 or whatever. Maybe if they have a really high-paying job and they're fine losing well more than that. So it's hard to say, but let's say you're not. You're trying to figure out if you're a winning player. Should you spend more time into this? I would say 8 on NFL is not enough, not a big enough sample size. NFL is definitely the sport where it is very tough to judge how you're doing. Because if you compare it to any of the other sports, like baseball is the obvious one. You have 17 weeks in the NFL, basically, with main slates, forgetting showdowns and afternoons and all that stuff. And the amount of slates, you could get that many slates in MLB in like 10 days, 12 days. I mean, if you don't play MLB, you might think I'm joking there. I'm not, because they'll have like a full slate on at noon, and then another slate at 6, like a couple times a week. So you're getting in a bigger sample size to achieve your edge or see if you're losing in MLB a lot faster than NFL. And another thing a lot of people don't take into account is NFL is the most popular sport, so all these tournaments are bigger, a lot bigger. So like in baseball, since this is the sport that's playing right now, it's on the top of my head. The main $15 slate that everyone generally wants to play and win, that has like 50K or 100K up top, will have between 13,000 to 23,000. Is pretty big for MLB opponents, total entries. And go look at a big NFL slate. There's 300,000. There's someone like when they do like a $5 milli, it gets even more ridiculous, the amount of opponents you have. And that scales down all the way too, to like some of the smaller, 3 maxes and stuff still have tons and tons of opponents. And so that's a good thing because you're going to have weaker competition, more casual players, but it's also more variance because you have to get through a whole lot of lineups to realize your edge. So in football, I would say 8 is not enough. Obviously play what you can afford, yada, yada, yada. But I would go like if you are getting less than 25% back for like 10 straight weeks in NFL, I mean, you definitely want to at the very least reevaluate your process heavily, probably take a week or 2 off and like completely redo it. If you're losing, this is another important point. If you're losing but only slightly, like you're coming close to breaking even each week, that's pretty good for GPPs. We're talking 150 entries here. That's pretty good. You're actually very close. You're basically beating rake, which most people can't do. So if you are getting back like 75%, 80%, 85% every week, definitely don't quit. Like that's pretty promising. Maybe just need to get lucky or you just need to tweak some stuff. But I would say more it's the amount you're losing than the total number in NFL. And here's another thing. Come the off season, rethink your process, redo everything to come up with new ideas. And, I don't want people, wasting, shoveling money down a well, right? But like if you have money to spend, redo your process and then start again. And then week 8 is not a bad spot, by the way, to really evaluate what you're doing. And so I think simply if you're getting 10, 15, 20, 25%, maybe 35% back every week, you might want to rethink something. If it's like you're getting 1.1x and then 35% and then 80% and then 1.2x, right? Like around there, like don't quit. Like if you're enjoying it and you have the money. Okay, from our guy Drico, which correlation lessons from DFS are most applicable to best ball? So I am not even close to done with my best ball sim I want to build to like kind of test some of these theories. Can't really do a sim like DFS the same way with best ball, but I think you can glean a lot of insights. And another reason I want to kind of do it is, well, one for content. I think it'd be good for the show. And I don't care, right? It's best ball. It's not my bread and butter. It's not where I make money. So if I find some interesting stuff, how much does that hurt me, right? If I get 20 best balls drafted this year, right, that would be my all-time high. But yeah, so I mean, right off the top of my head, easily is correlation of the standard correlation QB, wide receiver, and tight end. And pass catching RBs. I mean, I know that's so obvious. You probably don't want to hear that, but I mean, you want to hear something more interesting? I mean, I don't. I just don't see. I just can't see any other correlations from DFS that really matter in basketball. Like, and I would say the run back options in DFS are probably overvalued by best ball bros from what I see. I mean, if you use it as a tiebreaker, if you're looking at like you got a guy ranked 250th and that guy ranked 251st, and one's a run back on your quarterback double stack, have at it. But they're going to play at max 2 games against each other, and it's not like DFS where we are like 99% certain who's going to be playing that day. So if anything, maybe don't even do a run back if that's built into the ADP and your opponents and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know what the sim's going to show. I don't think there's going to be. There can't be many correlations. I'm trying to think because you have to do a simulation. You kind of have to provide the simulations yourself from past data, which we already have for NFL, obviously. But sometimes it can show you some interesting things through all these strange interactions. I'm thinking like rate of advancement, like which players advanced to the playoffs most frequently in the sim. Maybe that can tell us something. Advanced versus ADP, maybe you could just tell ADPs they're drafted too high on average or too low on average. That would be helpful. What does an optimal 150 look like? And then what do those exposures look like? Which players are over and under drafted from those versus those exposures? And then you can hand build from there. There's definitely the big thing is for me is in best ball's portfolio management, but I don't. That's kind of not ready for public consumption yet. Ideas. Maybe we'll talk about it some other time. Sorry. Okay. Alan Lem, if you could see Twitter DFS beef between any two people, who would it be and why? My head went to DFS, although Twitter is probably much more interesting, but DFS would be CSU and Bales, right? Like Caesar and Brutus, right? E2 Bales, right? They get into some kerfuffle. That would be great, wouldn't it? You could just see people's heads exploding. Can't you? Not you two. You can't do this to each other. I don't know. I think that would be hilarious. All right, what else do we got? All right, our guy, Ben4. Eric says, how long do you want to continue playing DFS? Something you think you'll want to do for many years to come now, or do you have a retirement plan? And my mom liked this tweet, so I have to respond. I don't have a expiration date in my head. I still like DFS. I just loved it about the same thing about poker, DFS. Not having a boss. I could do whatever the hell I want. That's very important to me. I could say whatever I want on all these podcasts. Like, that's really fun. I can say whatever I want in LOLs and take cast, this, whatever. I always have to consider those guys and their careers and stuff like that. And so I don't want to get anyone in trouble. So sometimes I censor myself, honestly, but things I censor myself are probably not that important anyways. But so like I enjoy it. And I still think I guess the answer is when I don't think I have an edge at all. It's definitely been less. The edge, it's been more swingy for me. I won today, so you caught me in a good mood. But, if I can't beat it, then what's the I'll just lose all my money and all my savings and blah, blah, blah. So, like, that would definitely just put me out of retirement. And, I don't know when that day will come, but probably not in the next 5 years. Maybe not in the next 10. Just someone's, I think, eventually going to provide a product to users that is like a one-click, pretty goddamn good option. And we talked about this with Nerdy Tenor on Lulz a couple of weeks ago, where he says, I don't want losing players. I want losing players who lose to the less than the rake, or more than the rake, rather. And he's right, because those guys who lose within the rake, and as I mentioned earlier in the 150 question, are pretty close to winners. And some of them probably will win, and some of them, are probably getting lucky, etc. But they're not just putting in, brain dead, smooth brain lineups, which is kind of I don't know, similar to poker back in the day, where you didn't want to. Why would you play if you're playing six max, no limit hold'em? Why would you sit at a table of five sharks? Right? It just doesn't make any sense. And even if they're just regs and they're probably not winning, they're not like that bad. There's just no reason to play it. And it's harder to up your game in DFS, right? Where poker, where there was such a long learning curve from 2003 to Black Friday, and now they're probably insanely good. So I kind of started rambling there, lost my thought, but I don't have a retirement plan for DFS. In life, I kind of want to have a place here in Chicago. I have a home here in Chicago, and I want a snowbird place somewhere warm, probably Florida, because we have a family home there. My brother lives there. The humidity sucks, but I know the area and stuff like that. Been going there since I was a kid. So that's probably the long-term plan. That's like 10 years at least down the road and if I have enough money and the market's not insane like it is now, but I just can't stand the fucking winters anymore. Next question. All right, let's do non-DFS. The Moon Sun says, should all drugs be legal? Would it be more beneficial to society to put all the drug war resources into treatment, mental health, quality control, etc.? Let's say the government will spend the money regardless. He goes on and says, I say absolutely yes for many reasons. Obviously, the freedom to do what you want with your own body, but it's very clearly a failed policy, etc., etc. So he sounds like he's not a regular Lulz listener. So I agree. I think all drugs should be illegal. The trade-offs aren't worth it. Where, crime is a big one, where people think if drugs were illegal, there'd be this crime all over the place because people have these breaking and entering crimes to pay for their drugs. But drugs are expensive because it's a supply and demand issue, because the supply is so small because it's illegal. So heroin is made by Afghani farmers in a war-torn country, right? And so it's easy to make and it's dirt cheap, but over here it's expensive. It's an expensive habit because it's illegal, because it's hard to get. So and also it causes these cartels in Mexico that terrorize people to provide recreational drugs for Americans, etc. And the moral aspect, which you mentioned, which is people should have the right to put whatever in their body. I would do the Portugal strategy, where drugs would be legal. And yes, if you have to spend money, then yeah, spend it on these drug resource centers, just like Portugal does. But they do have a different policy where you can't do drugs open and on the street, which we don't have here. So we kind of have this anarcho-tyranny situation going on, where it's the worst of both worlds, where drug users are, if you live in a major city, you see it all over the place and in nice neighborhoods where they're, begging for money and doing drugs and passed out on the street. And in San Francisco, it's a really big problem. Chicago, it's pretty bad, but not nearly as bad because of our weather in the winter. And so drugs are illegal, and people are still getting arrested and ticketed and what have you, depending on your state laws. But yet, we still have this huge drug problem, right? So it's a huge disaster. Clearly a failed policy. Let's try something new, but don't hold your breath. Okay, Tim Bruns asks, smaller stakes question, 100-ish bankroll. If you hit a decent win for around 1.5K, would you take a shot on a contest such as the Monster, or go heavy on satellites for larger contests, looking for an opportunity for a big score without playing against 150 maxers? Okay, the idea of not playing against 150 maxers is excellent, but I think that strategy you just suggested, either one, is really bad. You're playing against the Monster, you're playing against the best players, and they're still multi-entering at the same percentage of total entries. So that's probably the last contest you should enter. Satellites, if you can get a ton of overlay, I guess maybe, but those are generally bad. Also, especially into like the live finals and stuff, like that's more of an experience package that you're getting. It's not good for your bankroll or total ROI to enter in any of those. If you're going to do it to enter into a $1,500, okay, fine. If you have a lot of overlay, but again, you're gonna face the same issue where all the good players are mass entering again, and there's a larger percentage of good players, and they have the same percentage of total entries compared to 150, basically. So I would definitely not do either of those. The strategy I suggest is, it's not the end of the world to play against the 150 maxers. Just do it, because there's also the easiest field in those usually. So you want to do it in the ones where the field's the easiest, which is generally like the biggest one on the slate. So like for you, that would be like the $15 one, and do like 3 entries, or probably 2 or 4, and then make those 2 completely different the best you can, where they're not correlated. Or 4, and then do the same thing. So you're not running, 4 of the same quarterback or the same pitcher. Maybe 3, but not 4. So you don't want all the lineups exactly the same. Don't sacrifice too much. But that's what I would do. And then, like, if you're in a dupey sport, same thing. But you just try not to dupe. Do your best to get some sort of low dupe amount without giving up too much, and just play 2 to 4 entries. And then if you're going to play for the big prize, it's not that bad of a strategy because it's still the easiest field, even with the 150 maxers. As soon as you go up to these 300, 777, or 1500, or 3000, or whatever, you're playing against really high competition. So I would stay away from that. Okay. Fun question from Nathan. Frog poison once a week for the next 2 years, or become a full-time bestball tout, including weekly shows with Joe Holka. Well, I like Holka, so that's not going to be a negative for me. But full-time bestball tout. Now, the full time is doing all the work there for me, because you put full time anything, and that sounds like a job, and that sounds like a lot of pain, and I do not want to do that. Tout, I don't know. Like, well, I mean, tout compared to like a day laborer, like that sounds like tout's a pretty good job. But I mean that would suck. The full-time aspect is the worst part of it all. Now, the problem with frog poison is that it's poison. So I don't want to die and you know, working full time seems better than dying. So if without researching frog poison survival rates, I'm just gonna have to spitball here and go with full time tout. Back to a regular question. Okay, how do you say that? Gobble? Gobble? When playing PGA, what rules of thumb do you have in regards to ownership, such as blindly fading anyone over 25% or playing 2x overweight anyone you're rostering? Okay, so I don't have any blindly fading or 2x rules of thumb. I don't like being overweight or underweight for arbitrary reasons. And that's, kind of what I talked about where I don't like the term leverage. The way it's kind of used normally is it's like as a descriptive thing, like I am over the field, therefore I'm leveraged. But leverage is like if you are in a wrestling match or an MMA fight and you have a guy, in a guillotine or something. Like you have leverage over him, right? You like for a specific reason. Just because you think Garrett Cole is gonna be a good pitcher and you take 2 times the field, that does not mean you have leverage. That just means you're 2 times the field. So, but that's not what you were asking. That was kind of a side tangent. So ownership with PGA is tricky because I don't think you can just blindly fade people anymore. The fields are too sharp, and the salaries are too efficient. We do not want salaries to be efficient as DFS players. We want them to be inefficient. And they base the salaries off the starting winning odds, which end up being more or less pretty close to right by Thursday's tee time. So I don't think there's a ton of edge in PGA either way, but the rule of thumb would be you're probably going to be around the ownership of those guys with a few of them leverage for whatever your reasoning will be. And the leverage will probably come in like the 3 to 7% range owned. That just seems like what it is to me. Normally, like a 25% guy, like I'll probably have him somewhere between 18 and 30. Who knows? This is all hypothetical. And if I was running an optimizer, I would put in your projection source of choice, run, 50 lineups, sort by projections, find the optimal, and then cap the projected points by some margin. So let's say it's 400. Maybe go down to 390. That's max projected points for the team. And then do the same thing with ownership. So sort by ownership and what's the optimal. And you do these things and kind of dial it in based on the optimal, not some arbitrary number because it changes each week. So like if the golf tournament is at some tough U.S. Open course, the scores are going to be really low. But if the course is at like the John Deere here in Illinois, the scores are going to be really high. So you can't just say, take 20 points off the top every time. You want to do it as a percentage of the optimal. And the same thing with ownership. Hopefully that helps. Okay, Alex Altman says, is a hot dog a sandwich? That is an easy question. The answer is no. A hot dog is a compressed meat drippings within a animal skin container. You didn't say a hot dog on a bun or anything like that. So a hot dog is not a sandwich. The full hot dog and everything like that, I don't know. But you didn't ask that question. So no, just a hot dog is not a sandwich. Rupesh asks, was that Drafter's Slow Draft the only best ball draft you've done? And what do you plan on doing with the data? So it looks like you know exactly what I was doing. So I did do one drafter's slow draft. I just put in ETRs, optimals, and let it run because my coders needed that information. They needed to go in and look and grab the code so they could work on my app to do that, the overlays and everything on drafters. So it's basically like a business expense. I don't expect to win, obviously. But that's what I'm doing with that data. I probably will play a few more drafters and stuff once if anyone's hired coders, they know it just takes forever and you never get exactly what you want. But hopefully it gets pretty good. Okay, Kevin McSherm asks, what do you think will happen in the future if when near human level AI exists in terms of normie people generating income? Okay, I thought that was going to be what are you going to do when that happens with DFS, but in terms of normie people generating income, yeah, so I used to be a big UBI bro back in the day, and that was one of the main reasons is what are people going to do when there is no jobs? And I guess long story short is usually when these things happen throughout human history is more jobs are created through the efficient process of implementing machines and AI work. But if you do want a good debate, you could look at the Soho Forum, which is a debate forum, and I believe this is on YouTube. It's titled "The Soho Forum: The Rise of Robots," and it's between Martin Ford and a guy who I follow and follows me is Anthony Samaroff, who actually titled a book called Universal Basic Income For and Against, which I think he made free now. So check it out. Uncle Hefe with a very important question. Would your opinion on hot naked girls doing yoga change if they were backed by Saudi money? That is a good question because the Saudis are engaged in a war with Yemen, more of a genocide as they are winning that war handily, and a lot of innocent Yemenis are starving and dying of dysentery. And so based off that, I would say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't. But then I thought, well, America is also refueling the Saudi planes in this war, selling them arms and giving them military and backing. So does that mean I can't watch American girls doing naked yoga now? So I think the only answer is I have to review the hot naked girls doing yoga sponsored by or backed by Saudi money to assess, what the hell is going on, right? And then make my decision from there. So wait and see. That's a wait and see approach. Or I guess see and wait. Sim Carter asks, old style or old style light? Old style, I would say, if I'm just picking one at the Cubs game. My old joke was, I've been drinking old style for so long, they used to just call it style. Feel free to use that dad joke. Just give me credit. That's how good that was. All right, last question from Go Sox Bro. If you were president, what would be a few of your policies? Well, the first one would be I declare myself emperor, and I would rule with an iron fist. and I'd probably, start a gulag, where I would put all my enemies. Those would probably be my first few moves. All right. Well, I'm gonna end it there. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. What a treat for all of us. All right. Thanks. Maybe I'll do some more of these if anyone is interested. Adios, fellas.